Hello and welcome back to Crafting with Kara. I know I've been gone a minute. Last you might have seen me was in February, and it is already after St. Patrick's Day in March. Uh, Today we've got Mahogany on the couch as well as little Ginger. Ginger's over here too. Hi, Ginger. I'm hoping that they'll be chill and happy on the same couch. We will see. I wanted to do a quick update and talk about all the things that I've been working on for the past 2 weeks, just to keep you posted and in the loop. The reason I've been a little out of communication with you guys is because I was doing early voting, early election judge working. And so that started on March 2nd and went up until the election day, which was March 17th on St. Patrick's Day. Uh, there was a lot of time to just kind of sit around waiting for voters to come in and get checked in, get them all voted, and make sure that their ballot got cast, which meant that there was a lot of downtime, which I used for knitting. So the first 3 days, I was very excited how quickly I got it done. The first 3 days, I crocheted a baby blanket, and then I started working on a cardigan. So I will talk all about that in just a second. Ginger just got comfy. She's right here. Yeah, little Ginger's here. Yeah, and Mahog's still here too. So I'll get that in just a second. But while I'm here, I'll just tell you. So this is the Swan Show by Caitlin Hunter. This is one of my favorite sweaters. It's got like a real dropped armpit, so it makes it super cozy. And it's made out of DK, which in most times makes sweaters pretty warm for inside the house. But because the dropped armpit and kind of billowy belly and everything, it makes it breathable. And so I highly recommend that pattern. I really liked it, and the colors are so fun. All right, so now that Ginger moved off my knee, I can get this blanket. Oh, yeah, and she thinks it's a toy. So this one I crocheted. I'm giving it to a cousin who's going to have a baby girl. But I told myself that I wasn't going to buy any yarn, so I went through my stash. And although I didn't have like baby pink yarn, I did have like this light, it's kind of light blue, but I'm hoping it reads as like a minty green, especially with all the yellow. And then the yellow has like shiny like tinsel in it. There you go. You can see that. So this one's a lot of double crochets. And it is the 12 pointed star blanket. So this one's on YouTube as a free pattern. And then on Ravelry, there's a pattern there as well. So I made this guy, and I did it in like the first 3 days of electioning. I started the little pinhole. I did like maybe this amount before being an election judge, and then I finished this in 2.5 days. So it looks fabulous. I really like it. The one thing, since I was crocheting in public, oftentimes you do get to hear people's stories about how, oh, I crochet and my so-and-so taught me to knit and things like that. Very sweet stuff. But a lot of people were like, when are you going to turn it and square it off? And I was like, I'm not. It's just a big circle blanket. Technically a 12-pointed star. So this one's just going to stay this shape and size, and it is done. So that guy got done pretty darn quickly. And now it's going to be off to, like I said, a cousin who's already had the baby, but I got to it now. So that is exciting. I like folding it up like this because then it feels like it's like a little bit of a bouquet. It's really fun. It's like, oh, look at that. Doesn't that just seem like a cozy little thing? And all the yarn is like super machine washable and everything like that. So that's really great for a mom with a little baby. So that was the first thing I did. And then I knew I needed a project that I could pretty mindlessly work on. I've talked previously about how I was going to try and reduce my whips, but all the things that I had worked on and was like halfway done with were all things that like intense color work or working a heel on a sock or different things like that. So there was some things that I knew I couldn't do during election judging. And so instead I cast on a new project, but again, also trying not to buy yarn. I just went through and found a bunch of different one skeins, like single skeins of fingering that I had. And I made myself a DK weight cardigan because I'm marling them, and so I held them together. I got this idea back in the fall when I was looking at Stephen West, different color combinations and things like that for this last, the thing that I was making into a blanket for, what was it called? Not shellography. I can't remember what this one's called. Go-Go Dynamo was the other year. Anyway, so this guy, at first when I was pulling out colors and deciding what to do, I pulled out 5 different fingering weights of like greens and blues and yellows, and that's what I ended up going with. And I thought instead I'm gonna make either a sweater or a cardigan, hold my fingerings double, make them marled, and I was thinking it was going to be similar to the Rain or Shine sweater that Stephen West has, but I thought I was going to do Garter Marler at the time. Instead, I did a very large deep dive of a bunch of Ravelry projects, and I found one that had, what are they called? Saddle shoulders. I was curious to see how that shape would work. I wanted it to make sure that it was a cardigan, so that way I could take it on and off, and be comfortable. And so I wanted saddle shoulders. So that narrowed it down a lot. And this is the pattern that I ended up choosing. I decided on Home Base, and it's by Hinterm Stein. And this one is usually a DK weight, one color all throughout with just minor patterning. So you can see here on the shoulder, the saddle shoulder, that there's some like knits and pearls. And then on the neck, like the button band, there's some knits and pearls as well. So that's consistent in the pattern. And so when you've got only one color, like that part really stands out. And then there's even a little detail you can do in the back, as well as a detail that you can do on the pocket that follows that same kind of knits and pearls pattern. I, as I mentioned, instead marled together a lot of different colors. So I took some scraps that weren't even a full skein, as well as taking skeins of just one skein of fingering. So we've got some blues here, and that's where that shoulder strap comes into play. And then we marl in greens and stuff. Here, one of my favorite combos is on the back of the neck here. I still have a little bit left of this ball of the like green that's here. I ended up making socks from it. And then I've got, this is what's left over, plus a little bit more, because once I realized how much, like what the pattern... No, wait, Kong. Once I figured out what the pattern was talking about and I understood like the shape in my head, I knew that I didn't have that much yarn. So I needed to change colors to something that I had much more yarn of. So that's when this color got involved. And then we've got 2 pearl bump rows of just that one color held double. Then we've got some of this, and this is actually a marled green. So the 2 pearl bumps that are it by itself are this light green here, but it looks a little marled as well. Then we add in that dark green. Then we go to a light blue that's marled. And then we've got some other colors as well. So in general, I've got lots of stuff going on. It's really exciting to just pick up a ball and then turn it and, make things keep happening. This is that same blue on the shoulder pad just again, and now I'm still working it with just some green. It was fun to get to the after the armpits, there's some bust shaping. So that was the back. This is the back right here. You can see there's just a little bit of dark blue and white. Whereas when you come around to the front, there's quite a bit of dark blue and white, and that's the bust dart shaping. So that's really cool. So here we've got some, and then it comes around and it gets wider at the front. And so that way it'll like fit better. There's even waist shaping. The pattern had different choices. It had A-line, so that way you could get like broader hips kind of for your cardigan. It had straight, which, just continues as normal. And then it had waist shaping. So I'm in the midst of the getting back to increases for the waist shaping. And you can see on the edge there, look how good that's looking. So that's actually like the little like the cinching of it all. So see how it increases and then decreases? That's the waist shaping there. It's fun to see it like that because then you can really see it really well. Other modifications I made to the pattern, like I said, I wanted this to be a super cozy, easy to do while I was like checking in people. So I didn't want to purl all the way back. I did for this neck part, and that's what made me realize I didn't want to purl for the entire cardigan. And I was like, wait, can I even change my mind at this point? And I decided, yes, I can change my mind because a lot of shirts have like yokes on the back shoulder, like especially plaid shirts in my mind, where the plaid goes a different direction, like right above the shoulder blade to the top of the shoulder. And then the rest of the sweater is like plaid in the traditional, direction. So whether it's like horizontal and vertical and then it goes diagonal on the shoulder bit, either way, this is what I feel like that's giving. The fact that it's all purl or stockinette stitch here. And then we've got the purl bumps. And because I knew that the button band had this pattern, this little motif, as well as the shoulder bits, and I can even show that so that way you can see it a little better. In person, it's not as crazy, and the camera's just catching the marling a lot, which is good. So here you can see there's purl bumps with little knit ridges down it. So I decided the way that I'm going to like get away with purling a lot, to have it look like it's purled a lot more, but therefore I'm physically knitting more. I decided to take this kind of motif and turn it into this shape. So we've got a lot of purl rows, and then there's these knit columns all the way down. And I did it so that there's 10 purl bumps and then 1 knit row, 10 purl bumps, 1 knit row. Now, of course, for the waist shaping, which I pointed out, this means that you had to increase and decrease. So on this side, it's honestly hard to tell, which is great because I don't want it to be so apparent, but you can see that some of the purl bumps, like instead of having a full 10 in between the knit rows, ends up being a little bit smaller. And it ends up being in the armpit and in the back, and you can't tell too much. You can see a little bit here, maybe if you're looking. And I'm honestly okay with it because it then will like give that little like kind of look to it, make it look like it's a cinched in. Because you can definitely see it, the tightest part, this just no longer looks like 10 and then it widens out. But I love that. I think it'll look really great. So that's a modification I made, was adding all those purl bumps and then having that fun knit row. I think it looks really great. And then I knew that was going to be hard to recreate in the sleeves. So I decided, especially when I was doing the yoke, that the sleeves are going to be completely stockinette. And once I pick them up, they're just going to be knitting in the round, which again, is going to be more of a beautiful process knit because it's just going to be knitting in a circle, which I'm very excited about. So this I started on March 4th, and it is March 18th. So I made a huge amount of progress in a very short amount of time, which if you are someone with like a part-time job or someone who's retired or someone who doesn't have work right now, I highly recommend whenever elections come, look into being an early election judge. At least in Cook County, suburban Cook County, you can get a full 2 weeks of work and you do very little, and you work with the public and you help them cast their ballot. You even get to see like behind the scenes how it works, which is really cool too. And you've got a lot of downtime. I listened to, while knitting, 3 books, one of which was Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Rings. So a lot of hours, over like 20 hours. So I had a lot of time, and to me, it's worth it. You get paid, you have a good time, and you do very little work. So highly recommend. In November, look into it. So I'm going to be making the sleeves hopefully very similar to one another, based on the scraps that I have. I'll do like, oh, this will be a green spot, this will be a green spot, and then blue, whatever. But they are not, in my mind, going to be the same as the body. So I don't feel the obligation to say, well, this part was green and blue, and then this part was white, and then this part was dark, and this part was blue, all that. Oh, I forgot to talk about one of the exciting bit. So the pattern also called for pockets. I ended up doing the pockets a little differently, just because that's what I felt like. And I'm going to go in afterwards and do something similar to the shoulder pad and take one color held double, do this motif a little, and then pin it to the top. But I'll show you what my pockets look like right now. So they are not seamed at the side, but I did do the double length. So that way when my hand goes in, it feels both sides of this. And this, maybe you noticed, is the blue yarn from the baby blanket. So this one I used one skein of the light blue. I finished it completely, and then I used a little bit of a second skein that I had. And now a vast majority of the second skein remaining went into the pocket. This isn't held double, and it's all DK by itself, but I figured that this is perfect for a pocket because it's, again, that like super plasticky, it's not super wash, it's just kind of polyester, I think is what it is. And so it'll be able to be used really well. So it looks like it's all purled, but on the inside where your hand slides down, it's all knit. So I feel like it'll feel really soft, which is exciting. And there's just little purl ridges to like tell where to bend. So that's exciting. And now I just have to go at least until I've covered the pocket, because I'm going top down. And now that I've made that pocket, it has to at least cover that. And then at that point, I'll try it on, figure out when to cast it off, and I'll figure out what to do with the ribbing at the bottom. I've been loving this pattern and all the modifications I've made. These little guys are going to be where my buttons go. I had to go out to Michael's and get some wood buttons. I wanted something pretty subdued because this pattern is loud and exciting. So I got subdued buttons. And then I've got the buttonholes over here. So you can see this one's right here. Boop, 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 boop. And then that's the first one. This one ended up being bigger. I know I need to cinch it up a little bit, so I took some of the colors that I had, and I'll make that a little bit of a smaller buttonhole. And then we've got another, and I just did a buttonhole just now. So very exciting. I love how much progress I made. I know, knowing my work schedule for the next 2 weeks up until the end of the month, I am working like crazy with spring break and with all these other things. So I will not have a lot of knitting time. So this immense progress that I've made in 2 weeks will then dwindle. So you'll be able to see the progress, but I think it's going to take much more than 2 more weeks to finish it up. But I'm loving this. And because I'm making these patterns up, like, especially when I was up at the top of the neck, I was deciding what to do purl wise and knit wise. And because every time I get a few rows done of one color, I then like blend it with another color. These are just some of the colors I've got, as well as much smaller little scrappy balls, and those will be used for the sleeves. Because it feels just so freeing that I'm doing whatever I want. It feels like jazz with this cardigan. So I'm nicknaming this cardigan my Rhapsody in Blue and Green cardigan. Get it? Isn't that good? So because it's just freewheeling and just, letting the music and the crafting take me where I want to go. So that's why it feels jazzy. I watched Soul, that Pixar movie, and they talk about flow. I'm sure flow is talked about in many other situations, but I remember it most in Soul in the Pixar movie. And they talk about like the flow of getting into it and really like being happy with what you're doing, and you've got a flow to it and you're feeling good, vibing. That's definitely what this cardigan's all about, which is awesome. All the more reason it feels like jazz, because I feel like that was a very bluesy, jazzy thing. So I am loving this. I'm so excited. And I just bought yarn to make that hooded infinity scarf. So look out for that soon. I'm going to be making that pattern myself, and then I'll even ask for test knitters. So in the comments, let me know if you are a knitter and if you would be interested in a test knit. I don't know how these work. I've never written a pattern before, so it would be very rough and ready. But I'm excited. All this like creativity, and from making this blanket to now this, you can see my color selection. It's just making me so excited about trying to create new things that, yeah, I'd love to start to trying to make a pattern. So let me know in the comments if you are interested in being a test knitter. I'm not sure if I'll need test crocheters, but if you are a crocheter, let me know that as well, because maybe afterwards I'll make a crochet pattern. All right, well, enjoy your crafting. I will see you later, and I will update you on other things soon. Happy crafting, enjoy, and remember, you can always put it down, take a break, and then come back when you need to. Enjoy spring. Yeah, or fall if you're in the other hemisphere, but I'm sure you're not. So enjoy spring. It's finally thawing out. All right, bye.